for joining us for the Arapahoe County and Tri-County Health Department Business Roundtable. This is our second event in this series, and last week we had some great questions from local businesses across the county. Our goal today is to provide a platform for the business community to get COVID-19 related updates from Tri-County Health. We also want to give you the opportunity to ask questions you may have about opening and operating your business as safely as possible during the Safer at Home public health order. We are eager to hear from you today. Hearing your questions will help us understand your challenges and provide better support for you during this challenging time. My name is Chris, and I'll be your moderator today. If you've never joined us for a telephone town hall before, the process is simple. If you'd like to ask a question, simply dial *3 on your phone, and one of our operators will come online to take your question. If you've joined us through our website, you can also type your question in the box below the player. And today we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. We'd like you to know that this Business Roundtable is brought to you by the Arapahoe Douglas Workforce Development Board and is funded through the Arapahoe County CARES program. That program is distributing more than $114 million in funding from the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. The county is committed to helping businesses as much as possible during this crisis. As you've undoubtedly seen, information relating to COVID and public health orders feels like it changes every few days. That's why we've invited Melissa Sager from the Tri-County Health Department to join us. Melissa is the Policy and Intergovernmental Affairs Manager and is a regular guest on our town halls. She helps us better understand public health orders and what they mean specifically for our organizations. Good afternoon, Melissa. I wonder if you might be able to start with us on any updates that have come from the state or Tri-County in the last week.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here again to connect with the business community in Arapahoe County. So thanks to all of the callers who called in, and thanks to all of you for having me. Since the last time we spoke, the state did issue a 6th amended public health order. It was issued on Saturday. It did a variety of cleanups, allowed 50 people in gyms and personal services to match that guidance that was on the state's website. And one big area that was added on Saturday was a category for life right ceremonies. And so prior to this provision being added, you could have a wedding in your place of worship, up to 50 people, but you couldn't have that event somewhere else. You couldn't have that ceremony somewhere else. So the state added this provision to allow life right ceremonies to occur in any setting. Those life rights ceremonies include graduations, funerals, weddings, and other religious ceremonies, and can happen in groups of 50 indoors. The state is looking at data. We know that they will be reevaluating data on the 15th, so Monday of next week, and we anticipate additional changes. Chris, as you mentioned, things are changing by the hour, and that will continue to happen. So with that, I'll mention our Business Reopening Task Force. This is a group of staff here at Tri-County Health dedicated exclusively to helping our businesses navigate these ever-changing orders and the requirements to reopen. They can be reached at covidbusinessrecovery@tchd.org. And it's a really fantastic team of folks that are ready to answer any questions that stand in your way, including the simple, are there any updates in this area today? And so continue reaching out. We're over 1,100 technical assistance requests since May 8th. So just about 4 weeks, 1,100 TA requests, and we're receiving about 200 a week. And so add on to that number, reach out. Other businesses are, and it's been a really fantastic way to connect with folks and clear things up and really help businesses open in innovative ways. We've found that a lot of folks fit under the existing order and may be able to open with innovative approaches to keep folks safe. So please continue to reach out, and I'm excited to hear your questions today.
Thank you, Melissa. As a reminder, if you've just joined us, you can dial *3 on your phone to get connected to one of our operators. We would love to talk to you and actually talk to you in person, although we do have a lot of questions coming through on our website. Before we start those questions, though, we know that variances to the Safer at Home public health order have been top of mind for many businesses within the county, and there's also been some confusion about the variance process. We have asked Michelle Halstead, the county's Director of Administrative and Communication Services, to talk to us about this process and what the county has done with variances so far. Michelle?
Thanks, Chris. So counties may seek a variance from the state's Safer at Home public health order that are generally less strict than the state's order, but there's several steps that counties such as Arapahoe have to take. For example, we have to submit an application that certifies a low case count or a downward trajectory in those cases, and how the county will manage further spread of the virus with alternative restrictions from the public health order. In addition, all the hospitals within the county, the Board of County Commissioners, and the Tri-County Health Department have to approve our plan and how we will address upticks in case counts or outbreaks. Variances have to be industry specific, not business specific. So as Melissa said, it's important to work with Tri-County Health to see how your business can fit within the current stay-at-home orders, but also the county yesterday issued a variance request for restaurants, gyms, and houses of worship, seeking the state to allow us to have those businesses open up at 50% of their stated capacity. In addition, Arapahoe County also submitted an indoor mall variance request and has specific social distancing requirements to allow that business to open as well. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Michelle. We appreciate you coming on and clarifying that, and we might have a question for you down the road if you wouldn't mind staying online. Right now, let's start to get to some of your questions that have been coming through online, and this one's going to be for Melissa. HOA pools with no attendant, can they open with a volunteer system for cleaning every hour?
Yes, and this is really what we're talking about in these innovative approaches. It's a fantastic question. We've gotten it a lot. And what the state order requires is that pool facilities, commonly touched surfaces at pool facilities, must be cleaned every hour. And we do know that we have a lot of unattended pools in Arapahoe County. And that's exactly what we've seen, this innovative approach to get community volunteers that want the pool to be open to ensure that cleaning happens. We'd encourage you to have a log of some sort to ensure that that cleaning is occurring, but absolutely it can happen through volunteers.
Wonderful, thank you. Another online question, this one coming from Facebook. We are a physical therapy clinic and Pilates studio. Do we have to take client and patient temperatures upon arrival? Document temperature or just confirm it's below 100.4? Can you clarify that?
Yes, so physical therapy falls under limited healthcare services, limited healthcare settings, and it is required to do symptom checks for employees. And I'm just double checking because I do believe, yes, conduct symptom checks for customers. And this is because close contact is unavoidable in these situations. So similarly to your personal care services like your hair salon, that close contact is unavoidable. So we want that symptom screen before you make that contact with a customer to ensure that you're staying safe as well. So yes, you do want to do that symptom screening. I missed the last part of that question.
It was asking about documenting and recording those temperatures.
So, yeah. So it does not require you to maintain that information for customers in the limited healthcare setting.
Great, thank you very much. Next question is about museums. Are they able to open and what is the capacity?
Museums are a tough one. Currently, they are allowed to open. The caveat is that you cannot have more than 10 people in a room. Of course, the difficulty with that is many museums are very large, If a museum has multiple rooms, you can have multiple groups of 10 people. And so if you wanted to do those small groups that move through the facility in multiple rooms, that would be permissible. And with that, all of these, many unmentioned businesses that aren't expressly prohibited in the order can operate with 10 people or fewer in a single room.
Great, thank you for that clarification. This next question is something we have seen a lot on our social media accounts. Can you discuss places of worship that are held in high schools, gyms, or maybe even someone's home? Do they fall under the same capacity as the other places of worship guidance?
So it's a bit tricky. In those facilities, the guidance is that you need to follow those facility rules. And so in a place of education, P through 12 education, those groups are limited to 10. I'd be happy to chat that through specifically if you reach out to me. And we have been communicating with the state about this and what the guidance is. We do encourage folks to make use of outdoor spaces and would be happy to help plan those events in outdoor spaces. But currently they're subject to the facility requirements. So if you meet in a school or a library or any of those venues where gathering is restricted to 10, that restriction would carry in those facilities.
Great, thank you. There's a lot of shades of gray in there, and you're helping us work our way through it. Our next question comes from Kathy, and she asks, is a service dog organization considered limited health care or critical business?
I think this has actually come up for us before. It really depends on what the services you're providing are. Within that setting, we'd still be looking for no more than 10 folks in a room at a time, similar to your other businesses like an office-based business or even the schools. We're recommend the limit is 10 people within those rooms. But I'd be happy to chat through the specific activities happening in your place of business. And again, thinking of innovative ways to use separate rooms or possibly outdoor spaces should there be a need for increased capacity.
Wonderful. This is probably a complicated question, but this next caller asks, can you discuss the privacy for employee customer screening and HIPAA? How do the two interact with each other?
I don't want to I'm not the very best person to get into the details of the legal requirements of HIPAA, but there are a lot of resources available online. I will say that especially in personal services where you are collecting information for your customers, we're not looking for that health information, just information on how to contact them should there be an outbreak within your facility. You are maintaining those confidentially, and there is additional guidance on the state's website. But if you're unable to find an answer to your question about those legal requirements, we'd encourage you to reach out to an attorney who could provide additional advice in that space.
Wonderful, thank you. Next question, again online. Although receptions are not allowed, can food be served after a wedding ceremony?
Yeah, this is another big one that we're getting a lot. The answer is yes, and the restrictions are those receptions are strictly prohibited, and so your cocktail hour, your dancing, movement within the facility, all strictly prohibited. You can have a ceremony, and so using a wedding as an example, you can have a wedding ceremony, and you can serve that dinner after, so long as dinner service strictly adheres to restaurant guidance. So that means assigned seats, no greater than 8 people at a table, separated by 6 feet. Everyone from different households has to stay separated by 6 feet. No passing microphones around or moving about the room. And so it's just very different than a wedding reception, and it just needs to be strictly controlled like a restaurant. So it can occur just so long as folks are strictly adhering to those requirements.
Great, thank you. And following up on that, this is a question that's coming up a lot. Can you discuss generally guidelines for catered events, if that's easy to do?
Yeah, it is pretty easy only because I'm going to refer you to the restaurant guidance on the state's website. So if you go to the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment and you go to Safer at Home on their page, you can see the guidance for each individual industry. And if you just scroll down a bit, you'll see restaurants, and it provides detailed information on how to keep folks safe as they're engaging in meals and things of that sort. So it's pretty detailed. And if you have questions, maybe your activities don't exactly fit within this, you're wondering if a certain approach that you're taking, an alternative approach, an innovative approach, achieves the goals required under this guidance, please reach out to our Business Reopening Task Force. They're a fantastic resource to say, hey, the guidance says this. Does it mean this? Can I do this? And we'll chat that through with you and get you an answer pretty quickly. So keep reaching out with those unique questions.
Great, thank you. This next question has come up several times, so it must be on everyone's mind. In an office setting, can the kitchen be open with refrigerator use, and what about coffee pots?
It can, and if you take a look at the guidance for office-based businesses, it gives a bit of feedback on these spaces. We want those spaces restricted to the greatest extent possible, these common areas that employees may gather in or share equipment like the coffee pot or stirrers. And what we're asking folks is to limit the use to the greatest extent possible, but we know employees need to use a fridge to store their lunch. And so having some disinfecting wipes close by, having someone wipe down those common touch surfaces frequently throughout the day. So, every hour, every few hours, wiping down door handles, the handle to the refrigerator, making sure folks are aware, again, keeping those wipes near the coffee pot so we can wipe it off after each use. And just really increasing awareness through signage and communications is the biggest piece of this. So robust communications with your employees, any customers that use your space, et cetera, to say, hey, there's disinfecting wipes in the common area. Please use them before and after use of items. But we know that sharing is inevitable sometimes, and so just being thorough in your sanitation of those items throughout the day.
That is very welcome news as a coffee drinker, which I'm sure other people can appreciate. We've got another question online coming from Kathy. Kathy asks, can I take my kids to the playground and are park bathrooms open? And I suspect that may vary by city.
Yes, it's honestly going to vary by park. So not only by city, but just by each individual park. The guidance that Tri-County is providing to those folks who manage playgrounds and parks is that the decision has to be made on an individual basis. It's going to depend, is it possible to really keep those settings controlled? Are they monitored? Does the city or entity maintaining the park have the ability to monitor those spaces, to wipe equipment down throughout the day, to ensure folks are keeping social distance? Playgrounds are permitted under the order. It was one of the updates. Playgrounds can have up to 25 children playing on them at a time. If it's a smaller playground, we'd recommend less. We ask that kiddos keep that social distance still. It's very difficult on a playground and for young people. And so if they can tolerate a mask, to have them wear a mask. Take your hand sanitizer with you, wipe things down when possible. Tri-County did not recommend the closing of restrooms in parks because we know that folks need access to facilities. And so we recommend that they be open and have regular cleaning when possible. In some situations, it's going to be very difficult for a park, so they may have all of their facilities closed because they simply just can't maintain the sanitation throughout the day or monitoring those spaces. It's also going to depend on the community itself. So if the tennis courts are really hot in your neighborhood and it's really difficult to keep a limited number of folks on those, and it doesn't seem like folks are going to self-regulate and adhere to that, those may be closed in your neighborhood, but they may be open in others. We ask that parks place signage reminding folks, and of course we ask people to exercise personal responsibility in these places, to adhere to those limits, 25 on the playground or on a field, et cetera, to just ensure safety in those places. But they are permitted to open under the order.
That's wonderful news. If you're just joining us, as a reminder, we would love to talk to you in person. We will continue reading your questions online if you are too shy to get on. But if you would like to ask a question, all you have to do is dial *3 on your phone, and one of our operators will help get you online. Let's go back to the online questions now, and we have one relating to, again, to physical therapy. Are masks strongly required, and is it up to us to refuse service if a customer chooses not to wear a mask?
In these limited healthcare settings for physical therapy, it is required for employees to wear a medical grade mask and gloves. It is not required that customers wear a mask at all times. We do recommend that you strongly encourage the use of masks whenever possible. And again, we're talking about this close contact that you have to have with these customers that you're seeing. But medical grade masks for staff, so that should a mask need to be removed or should a patient be unable to wear a mask, you have that extra layer of protection with that medical grade mask if you're providing that service without both parties wearing one.
Great, thank you. Another online question talking about the Safer at Home Public Health Order. The order states local capacity limits for outdoor events, and this caller is wondering how that is determined.
So it depends on the outdoor event. So it's not outdoor events generally. There are limited exceptions where events can occur. So I mentioned life right events that can happen, outdoor worship services, sports, playing fields. They're all expressly permitted. Your general event, say your birthday party or a wedding reception, all of those are currently prohibited, subject to that 10-person limit. The state has set variance numbers to say that if you have a certain number of cases, you fall into a category, high, medium, or low, and that is what the state is granting variances off of. So in Arapahoe County, depending on the case count, the variance that the state grants to exceed those limits will be based on the number of cases in the county, and that's how those limits are set. You will see those expressly in either in the public health order or in an Arapahoe County variance, where it will expressly say what the limit is in those spaces. For places of worship, outdoor spaces, you should reach out to Tri-County Health Department if you plan to exceed 50 people in an outdoor space, and we can chat through the requirements of the order and any possible extension of capacity in those for those particular activities.
Great, thank you. We have an online question from Facebook, actually, that says, if a COVID case is traced back to one of my employees, is my business liable?
Again, I'm not the best person to talk about legal issues, and if you have concerns and questions, you should speak to an attorney about that. Businesses do have a duty to implement these protections to ensure that their employees are wearing masks, their guests are wearing masks if required, folks have access to hand sanitizer, employees are working from home to the greatest extent possible, you're not exceeding 50% capacity. All of those requirements for businesses, there is a duty, a legal duty to adhere to those requirements. But as far as legal liabilities for your particular situation, we'd recommend consulting an attorney.
Perfect, thank you. This is a timely question for this whole group, and it asks, what is the most common question the Business Reopening Task Force is getting? I think people are wondering what kind of company they're in as they're trying to navigate all this. Do you have a sense of what the most common questions are?
It's so interesting because it really changes depending on what the state is adjusting. So for, gyms are a very big question. More recently, as we've gradually reopened more, events are very big for us. Folks wishing to have their weddings or graduation parties and how they can do that safely. The question about, can I at least serve a dinner and act like a restaurant? So that's big now. And at pools, we're very big. And so it depends on really what the state is alluding to in the future. And then there comes a lot of questions, when will we be able to do this? What will the requirements be, et cetera? So it changes weekly. Maybe next time I'll have one of our Business Reopening Task Force members join me because they are boots on the ground answering them all and could speak to that better.
Wonderful. I'd love to have them on as well, so we will work on that for next week. We've got another gym question, personal training specifically. Is it still a max of 4, or is it based on the ability to stay 6 feet separated and overall business capacity?
It is based on that 6-foot separation. So gyms can do groups up to 50 people. If you're working in a smaller group, a class where folks will be moving, we'd ask you to keep that to a smaller group of 10. But the personal training restriction to 4 is no longer applicable. You can operate in groups of 50 within a gym.
Great. This is not a business question, but maybe you have seen this in your neighborhood, so it's coming up in other places. How about house parties? Are those allowed?
So currently they're restricted to 10 people. Again, just being a bit riskier. You have folks moving about. It's not like a restaurant where people are sitting in their assigned seat and stay there for the duration of the activity. And so that activity is prohibited above 10 people. We do expect updated guidance in the near future about what it looks like to have slightly larger gatherings, those backyard birthday parties or a pool party. But currently it's 10. I would check back we expect an updated order after the 15th, and then this current public health order expires at the end of this month, at which point we expect additional updates, but it's being adjusted.
Great, thank you for that. Just a reminder to everyone, if you do have more questions, you can type them in on our website, and those will get to us. If you're on the line and you'd like to talk to us in person, you can dial *3 to get a hold of us. We are making our way through our questions very quickly, so we might be out of here a little bit earlier. But I do see that we've had some more people join us, and we have had a couple more questions about the variance process, and I'm wondering if Michelle Halstead might be willing to come back online and just give us a quick recap of the variance proposal that was put forth by the county last night. Michelle, are you able to still join us?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So yesterday, the county submitted a variance request for restaurants, gyms, and houses of worship. And those variances asked that those businesses within those industries could operate at 50% of their posted capacity, in addition to following a variety of restrictions to ensure social distancing and public safety. In addition, the county also submitted a variance request for indoor malls with, again, alternative restrictions to allow those businesses to open up and operate. I hope that helps answer your question.
That does, thank you. As people join us, that's obviously on their mind, so thank you for giving us a little bit of a recap. Melissa, we've got another question for you, and that is, any word on larger events like craft fairs or art fairs?
So it's interesting that the public health order expressly prohibits fairs, but we have been having conversations with the state about trade, trade shows. I was going to say I cannot think of what those are called. And so it's pretty analogous to your craft fair where you have a large open space of vendors that come to sell their items, and so very similar. And you know, what we've heard feedback on is that this is a retail establishment. This is how folks sell their products, and we need to increase that access for them to be able to operate their business, really. The tricky part is that when you have a lot of vendors in an indoor space, the way that these events traditionally operate is very risky under COVID-19. So we've been talking to the state about what it looks like to alter the way that these events happen. And so a weekend event, instead of buying a ticket for Saturday, you buy a ticket for Saturday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., and there's a bit of cleaning after each group leaves. And the number of folks in an indoor space at one time is still very limited, but maybe you can rotate those groups out as you go. So it looks a little different. The conversations are happening in that space. There's a lot of active folks communicating with us here at Tri-County, with the state health department, and with the governor's office. And so those voices are being heard. Keep an eye out for the next update on after the 15th, but also at the end of the month. And we do anticipate those type of events being addressed.
Wonderful, thank you. We've got a couple of quick hits in a row here on specific types of openings. The first one is, are bowling alleys open?
Yes, so bowling alleys were defined under gyms, and when gyms were allowed to open with 50 people per room, bowling alleys were allowed to do the same. And we've seen bowling alleys some bowling alleys have multiple rooms, so they can host those multiple groups of 50, but otherwise, yes, they're open with 50 people maximum.
Wonderful. Next one relates to bingo halls. Are they open, and can they open?
Bingo halls are tough. They are an unmentioned business under the order. It's this unique business space where it's really an indoor activity business. We've been talking to a few folks working in the bingo industry, and what we've heard is that the number of folks permitted in the establishment would have to be significantly higher than like 50 in a bowling alley. And so this is making its bingo halls are a topic of discussion both at the county level here in Arapahoe County, but all the way up to the state, and the governor's office is another one of those issues that keeps coming up. And they're not alone as far as these businesses that fall in these unique spaces that have a lot of capacity, big open rooms that usually host a lot of folks to do an activity. And so we're discussing what it can look like to have those establishments operate safely. What I will say is that the state is strictly limiting indoor capacities, and so it's prohibitive in a lot of cases. And just as an example, the Park Meadows Mall, there was a variance for indoor malls, and the state said that the indoor mall could open, but it was limited to 175 people indoors. And if you've ever been to Park Meadows Mall, you know that it's enormous and can hold thousands and thousands of people. And so that number was significantly low, and we're seeing that across the board. And so some of these facilities, like a bingo hall that may be able to host 500 people, 175 may not even be enough. And so the conversations continue in that space. Keep checking back for updates. It's just a little bit of a unique situation for those businesses.
Great, thank you. Continuing on with our specific industry, we have an online question that asks, why can't I get a facial?
Yes, we get that one a lot too. And in those establishments, there's a few reasons for that. The very close personal contact that's unavoided, especially near your face for a facial. And if you do not have a mask on, that increases the risk. So in those personal service spaces, the state has said that a mask is required for the customer and the employee at all times, and it cannot, no services that require the removal of a mask can be provided. Initially, there were a lot of concerns with access to medical grade masks, and so we did not want personal care services, these elective optional services, using personal protective equipment that was in such short supply for our medical personnel. And so those establishments are only required to wear those cloth face coverings, which just aren't as protective as medical grade masks. And when that close proximity is required, a medical grade mask is recommended. And I touched on this for those limited healthcare settings like physical therapy. But the other component is that medical grade masks require proper fitting and usage, and our medical professionals have that training, and folks in personal care services providing facials may not, and they may not even be able to access those medical grade masks. So we do anticipate updates on this as well. Again, it's just very risky, and as we evaluate our gradual reopening, it was one of the areas where public health felt safer to wait for those services to resume.
Thank you. We really appreciate your expertise in all of this, Melissa. It's invaluable as we are trying to navigate all of this. Our next question comes online from Laura, and she asks, if we take our business service outside, do we both have to wear masks and social distance, or is it one or the other?
It would depend on what the business is. Is this still a personal service business, a hair salon?
It does not say. It's an online question. So, Laura, if you're listening and can chime in real quick, we'd love to answer it more specifically, but Melissa, maybe you can give us some general
I would assume that it's a personal service given the masking requirement for both employees and customers, and that would be required still. That's in any setting. Again, just given even outdoors, you have to be within a few inches of your client during that entire, providing that service during the entire time. And so that's risky even in outdoor spaces. The reason we recommend outdoor spaces as an innovative approach to increase capacity is because you can spread out, and you just can't do that for personal care services. And so those masks would still be required at all times.
Thank you. Want to just remind everyone that if you'd like some more one-on-one information from Arapahoe Douglas Works, you can sign up on the website, and that web address is www.adworks.org/businesses. And if you look for the Arapahoe CARES Business Roundtable, you can sign up so you can get a little bit more specific information when these calls are over. We do have another online question that asks, where should I look for updated information from the state? And Melissa, I know the Tri-County Health Department has a wonderful resource, but can you also maybe point out some of the state resources that are available?
Absolutely. The best resource for updates on COVID-19 from the state is the State Health Department's website. And I'll give that to you now. It's covid19.colorado.gov. And they update this page with the latest updates, and I have it pulled up now. and I see the new guidance that was issued for personal recreation and outdoor recreation, as well as telehealth guidance and blogs from different folks. And so that page, again, covid19.colorado.gov, is a really excellent resource for those latest updates on the orders.
Wonderful, thank you. And just a quick follow-up, our friend Laura was able to get back to us, and her business is violin lessons, so that's her specific question on moving outside.
Yeah, so we would still strongly recommend masks for those violin lessons, again, in those small groups of 10 or less.
Great, thank you for clarifying that. Kathy is asking, this is in relation to pools, what barrier is needed to separate areas between pools?
This has come up. We took this question to the state, and the initial feedback that we got is that the 50-person limit is on the entire facility. It does not include lifeguards. Again, we want to ensure safety in those spaces, but that 50 people was for the facility. We are talking to the state about multiple pools and what that looks like, but if we were to move forward and allow that to occur in multiple pools, it would have to be fully separated with a fence and a door that you enter in to ensure that those settings are completely separate. But for now, it's 50 people for the facility.
Great, thank you for that clarification. Question on general contractors. Can general contractors not wear masks if they are 6 feet apart from others? It's so hot outside right now, and I'm sure that's on a lot of people's minds today.
Yes. Yes, and we've asked the state to clarify this throughout the order, but you want to wear your mask when contact cannot be avoided. So it depends on what you're doing. So if there's a chance, if you're completely by yourself, 6 feet away from folks, there's not a chance that you're going to cross paths with either coworkers, customers, or the general public, you can remove that mask temporarily. You should keep that with you as you move toward people. You should apply that. But for those activities where you're completely separate from others, you can remove it. Pretty akin to an office space. I'm sitting in my office by myself. I don't have a mask on right now. But if I'm out and about and heading to the break room and there's a chance that I may run into folks, I would put that back on. So just ensuring that you have it with you and that if you are in close proximity to others, you have it on. But yes, you can take it off when you're by yourself.
Great, thank you. Another mask question. Fabric homemade masks are not okay for limited healthcare, personal care settings. Must these masks be medical grade but not N95s? I know there's some confusion about medical, non-medical, N95. Maybe you could give a general overview of what kind of masks are applicable to businesses.
So I do believe that the medical grade is, it can be medical grade or N95, but I do not have the specific differences between the two. I do know that they vary in levels of protection, and that limited healthcare setting does say medical grade. It does not say it has to be an N95 mask, and so that distinction is made there. But I don't have information on the specific differences between the two. I do know that that information is available on the state's website, and so that covid19.colorado.gov, that takes you to their COVID-19 page. And honestly, I've had really great success with the search feature. And so if you type in medical grade mask, I'm doing it as we speak, and I pulled up guidance for wearing masks, as well as information on N95 masks. And so I'd encourage you to take a look at the state's website. There's a lot of useful information on there that, and you may find something that you didn't even know you needed, because there's a ton of guidance on there.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone who has been writing in with your questions. We're down to our, I think, last question or two. The end is in sight, and Kathy is asking, will my city be able to have a fireworks event for the 4th of July?
So we are hoping to hear guidance on this from the state on Monday after they've taken a look at the data. If fireworks are permitted, it is not going to look like it has looked in the past. And so maybe it is a drive-in event to watch fireworks, or, very spread out. Maybe they do several smaller shows versus one very large show. And so we anticipate that guidance soon. As of now, those are conducive to gathering. Lots of folks gather in one space to watch those shows, and so those are prohibited under the order currently. I think the state may come out with guidelines on how to approach those events in an innovative way, again, whether it be a drive-through event or other ways to keep groups smaller and separated.
Great, thank you. Our last question actually is pretty applicable to just about anyone, but this caller is asking, with the new order, can I travel outside of my community?
Yes. It is still recommended that you stay close to home to the greatest extent possible, and you're careful if you visit other communities. So if you're going for a specific purpose, you get your gas in your neighborhood, you pick up your groceries in your neighborhood or your snacks. Again, just trying to control the number of touch points that you have as you travel. And we want to make sure that that's contained to the greatest extent possible so that COVID-19 isn't able to spread throughout communities. But yes, you can travel outside of your community.
Wonderful, thank you. And Melissa, we certainly appreciate having you come online to share your expertise, as well as Michelle Halstead from Arapahoe County. This is very valuable to the business community, and we are so appreciative of you taking the time to go through all of this. We'd also like to invite everyone to join us next Wednesday, that's June 17th, from 2 to 3, where we'll do another discussion. In the meantime, if you'd like a follow-up from Arapahoe Douglas Works, once again, you can sign up on the website at www.adworks.org/businesses and look for the Arapahoe CARES Business Roundtable button, and there you can enter your contact information. We'd love to talk to you more, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you for joining us.